Most sleeper cars fly under the radar, but not all of them deserve your garage. Some are secretly quick, others just pretend. From hidden gems to disappointing duds, here are 7 of the worst and 6 of the best sleepers you can actually buy. One might outrun a V8, another might lose to a lawnmower. 7 worst sleeper cars to buy. 7. 2005 Chevrolet Malibu Maxx SS. The family hatch that promised performance and delivered disappointment. It looked like something your aunt might drive to a PTA meeting. Tall roofline, awkward proportions, and a rear hatch that screamed, "Costco run." But this humble hauler wore a badge once reserved for burnout royalty. Beneath the hood sat a 3.9-liter V6, rated at 240 horsepower and 240 pound-feet of torque. Not groundbreaking, but enough to raise eyebrows. And it wasn't just power. GM stiffened the suspension, added 18-inch wheels, and even threw in paddle shifters. On paper, it had every ingredient for a sleeper hit. Then came the test drive. The 0 to 60 time, 6.9 seconds. Respectable. Until the transmission lags, the body roll kicks in, and the illusion collapses. The 4-speed automatic shifted like it was wading through molasses. The steering? Vague at best. You'd throw it into a corner and pray it didn't throw you back. Even worse, it never knew what it wanted to be. Too soft for real sport, too thirsty for a daily driver. And while it wore the SS badge, it lacked the bark or the bite. What could have been an underdog became a letdown. This wasn't a sleeper. It was a confused mid-2000s experiment, one that looked the part and said the right things, but couldn't back up any of it when it counted. And yet our next car will make this one look almost competent because it comes from a brand known for safety and not much else. 6. 2003 Volvo S60R, a Swedish executive sedan with rally-bred DNA and a case of split personality. It looked tame, business casual, like something a cautious middle manager would lease in navy blue. But under that quiet, polished sheet metal, a turbocharged secret was hiding, one that should have made it one of the greatest stealth performers of its time. This wasn't your standard European sedan. This was fitted with a 2.5-liter turbocharged inline-5, churning out 300 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That power was sent to all 4 wheels through Volvo's Haldex AWD system, and if you opted for the 6-speed manual, things got very interesting. 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. Quick enough to embarrass cars twice as loud, twice as flashy. It even came with adjustable suspension dampers developed with Öhlins. You could flip from comfort to sport to advanced at the push of a button. On paper, it sounded like Sweden had quietly built a missile and disguised it as a banker's commute car. But the cracks showed fast. That AWD system, front biased and hesitant when you needed it most. The suspension, cool in theory, prone to failure in practice. And if you skipped the manual and went with the Geartronic 5-speed auto, the whole thing felt sluggish, like it wanted to go fast, but wasn't allowed to. Add to that sky-high maintenance costs, tricky electronics, and turbo issues, and what you had was a machine that promised Jekyll and Hyde, but mostly just stalled in the middle. And yet, the next car somehow clings to a legendary badge, while offering almost nothing legendary. Let's keep going. 5. 1991 Oldsmobile Cutlass Calais. Quad 4 42, a badge built on muscle, slapped onto front-wheel drive disappointment. At first glance, it barely registers. A plain compact coupe stuck somewhere between economy car and rental fleet filler. But look closer and you'll spot it. 442. That number once meant something. In the 60s, it roared down drag strips. By 1991, it whimpered off dealer lots. Underneath the badge was GM's Quad 4 SHO engine, a 2.3-liter inline-4, making 180 horsepower and 160 pound-feet of torque. Not bad, especially in a lightweight shell. And it revved high all the way to 6,800 RPM. It sounded ambitious, too ambitious. On paper, it could hit 0 to 60 in just under 7 seconds, thanks to a 5-speed manual. The kind of stats that might earn respect in the right hands. but the execution, messy. The engine was coarse, buzzy, and loud. Not in a sporty way, but in a turn-up-the-radio way. Torque steer was a nightmare, and the ride? More crashy than composed. The suspension and chassis couldn't match the engine's energy. It was all engine, no finesse. A car that made you work for every ounce of performance and never paid you back in satisfaction. And worst of all, it pretended to be a continuation of a muscle car icon, without earning a shred of that history. It was a poser, one that wanted to revive Oldsmobile's golden age, but wound up writing its obituary instead. Next up, a plastic-paneled coupe with forced induction and a forgettable soul. Let's talk about what Saturn thought was sporty. 2004 Saturn Ion Redline. Supercharged, stiffened, and dressed to disappoint. The shape was awkward. Tall windows, slab sides, and an almost toy-like stance. It didn't look fast, and in many ways it wasn't. But this was the Redline edition, Saturn's first attempt at something serious. It had a blower under the hood, a manual gearbox, and a point to prove. The numbers weren't terrible. A 2.0-liter supercharged Ecotec 4-cylinder pushing 205 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque with a 5-speed manual sourced from Saab. 0 to 60, just over 6 seconds. It had Recaro seats, a tighter suspension, and even a drag racing mode baked into the ECU. On paper, this thing could fight, but it didn't. The power band was narrow and peaky. Off the line, it hesitated. The moment you got into boost, the torque steer jerked the wheel like it had a grudge, and the rest of the car, pure cost-cutting. Interior panels rattled. The electric power steering was vague. The cabin felt like an afterthought. Even the Redline exclusive bits felt tacked on, because they were. It had one job: BGM's answer to the Civic Si or Neon SR T4, but it lacked refinement, character, and most of all, staying power. Few cars feel this fast and this forgettable. And the next one, it tried to be a turbocharged AWD warrior, but stumbled over its own potential. If you're liking these underwhelming sleepers and secret beasts, hit that subscribe button. We've got more cars hiding in plain sight, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. 2010 Mazdaspeed 6, a turbocharged underdog that just couldn't keep up with its own hype. It looked clean, subtle, just enough edge to suggest there might be something beneath the surface, but still quiet enough to park in a law office lot without turning heads. For the unsuspecting eye, it was just a regular mid-size sedan. But this one came armed with all-wheel drive, a 6-speed manual, and a turbo that promised fireworks. Under the hood was Mazda's 2.3-liter Dissi turbocharged inline-4, good for 274 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. At launch, it was hailed as the grown-up Evo. It could hit 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds and grip through corners like it meant business. Mazda even gave it stiffer suspension, better brakes, and sharper steering. But the moment you pushed it hard, something felt off. The turbo lag was painfully noticeable, especially at low speeds. The AWD system, unlike Subaru's symmetrical layout, was part-time and front-biased, delivering grip only when it thought you were in trouble. Add in a curb weight of nearly 3,600 pounds, and the result was a car that wanted to dance, but tripped over its own shoes. Worst of all, it never got proper aftermarket love. Mods were limited, reliability, spotty, and resale, barely a blip. For a car that came out swinging, it faded fast. Would you still take a gamble on one today if it was clean and cheap? Drop a comment and let me know. We might have some Mazda diehards lurking out there. Next, a V6 powered pretender that looks like it came free with a timeshare brochure. 2007 Chrysler Sebring 3.5-liter V6, styled like a soap dispenser, and about as thrilling to drive. This one showed up with confidence. A wide grille, some chrome, and a badge that used to carry weight. It even came with a 3.5-liter V6, which at a glance suggested it might have some muscle hiding under that hotel lobby exterior. It didn't. On paper, the numbers seem fine. 235 horsepower, 232 pound-feet of torque, and a 0 to 60 time around 7 seconds. Decent, especially for a mid-size sedan in 2007. Chrysler even gave it a bit of a marketing push as a refined, powerful alternative in its class. But once you sat inside, it started to fall apart, literally and figuratively. The interior was a masterclass in cost-cutting. Hard plastics, awkward ergonomics, and trim that felt like it might peel off if you looked at it wrong. But even if you could forgive the cabin, the drive didn't help. The suspension was soft and floaty, yet somehow still managed to crash over bumps. The 4-speed automatic hesitated constantly, turning every gear change into an exercise in patience. Even with all 6 cylinders working, it never felt quick, just noisy, like the engine was trying to overcompensate for everything else the car lacked. Balance, feedback, soul. And while it didn't look aggressive enough to expect speed, it hinted at performance, and then ghosted you. It was all promise, no payoff. And now we're down to the worst offender of them all, the car that tried to pretend it was a rival to the Camry, but couldn't even outrun a base Corolla. Let's bring it home. 2001 Mitsubishi Galant GTZ, a mid-size sedan meant to rival the Camry, but couldn't outrun its own mediocrity. This one came dressed in ambition, chrome-trimmed, spoiler-equipped, and badged with 3 confident letters, GTZ. It wanted you to think it was something more, Mitsubishi's hidden ace, a family car with attitude. But the act wore thin fast. Under the hood, a 3.0-liter SHO V6, pushing out 195 horsepower and 205 pound-feet of torque. Respectable, especially for the early 2000s. On paper, it whispered sports sedan. In practice, it muttered compromise. Paired with a 4-speed automatic, acceleration lagged. 0 to 60 in about 7.5 seconds. But it felt slower thanks to an engine that wheezed rather than roared, and a transmission that was never in a hurry. The platform lacked the balance you'd expect from a sporty trim. The steering was vague, the suspension floaty. It couldn't corner with confidence or power through straights with punch. And for all the sporty add-ons, fog lamps, alloy wheels, that rear spoiler, it never earned any of them. Inside, it gave you leather, fake wood, and decent space. But it felt dated on arrival. While rivals like the Maxima and Accord were refining performance and polish, this car was stuck in a styling update pretending to be a full upgrade. It's not just that it wasn't quick, it was forgettable. And that's worse. A true sleeper hides power. This one hid disappointment behind a badge that tried too hard. But now we switch gears, from underachievers to overperformers. The next cars, quiet on the outside, dangerous underneath. Let's get into the 6 best sleeper cars to buy. 6. 2002 Saab 9.5 Aero Wagon, a long-roof family hauler with jet-inspired engineering and enough torque to catch a BMW napping. Coming off a list of letdowns, it's hard to believe this next one meant it. From the outside, it looks quirky, maybe even a little awkward. Tall, boxy, and undeniably European. It gives off strong airport shuttle energy, but beneath that sleepy silhouette was a machine built by a company that used to build aircraft. And this wagon, it flew. Under the hood sat a 2.3-liter turbocharged inline-4, pumping out 250 horsepower and a hefty 258 pound-feet of torque, with an overboost function that pushed it briefly to 273 pound-feet, 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds, and it kept pulling hard through the mid-range. The secret was that Saab didn't care about red lines. They built engines around torque curves, and this thing had one shaped like a brick wall. It came with a manual transmission, if you knew where to look, and the chassis tuning, while soft, offered just enough feedback to keep you locked in. The interior? Scandinavian weirdness in the best way. Deep seats, green-lit gauges, and the ignition key placed between the front seats. Because Saab. Was it perfect? Not exactly. Some electronics aged poorly, and sourcing parts in 2025 is a scavenger hunt. But those who know. This was a car you bought for the kids that could gap a G35 on the highway with a roof box on top. And the next one? It's a land yacht built for luxury, yet secretly powered by twin turbos and bad intentions. 5. 2010 Lincoln MKS EcoBoost Twin Turbo, a tuxedo on wheels, hiding twin turbo firepower under the hood. It looked massive. Heavy chrome, wide stance, oversized grille, the kind of car you'd expect to roll quietly through gated communities or corporate parking garages. soft, cushy, forgettable. But beneath the executive calm was a drivetrain borrowed straight from Ford's Speed Lab. This wasn't just a Lincoln, it was a sleeper wrapped in luxury. At its heart was a 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6, part of Ford's EcoBoost lineup. It cranked out a surprising 355 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, sent through a 6-speed automatic to all 4 wheels via an advanced AWD system. That meant grip, that meant launch, and that meant 0 to 60 in around 5.2 seconds from a car that looked like it belonged at a golf tournament. The best part? No one ever saw it coming. This was the Q-ship of the full-size luxury world. Inside, you had heated and cooled seats, high-end trim, voice-activated nav, and enough tech to distract you from how fast you were going until you looked in the rear view and realized you just left a 5.7 Hemi-Charger in your wake. Yes, it was heavy, over 4,300 pounds, and no, it wasn't made for corners. But for straight-line pulls and smooth freeway sprints, it had serious bite. Most drivers wrote it off as just another badge-engineered Ford. They had no idea what it could do. And next, we're dialing it back to subtle Japanese precision, where VTEC meets luxury and the manual transmission still reigns supreme. Let's move on. 2006 Acura TL Type-S manual, a leather-lined executive cruiser with a manual transmission and a taste for redline. It looked clean, purposeful, not flashy, not loud, just sharp. The kind of car that a young professional might lease in silver, park neatly in a suburban driveway, and never give a second thought to. But Acura had something different in mind for this version. The Type S wasn't just a trim, it was a statement. Tucked under the hood was a 3.2-liter VTEC V6, making a solid 286 horsepower and 256 pound-feet of torque. And if you picked the right spec, the one real enthusiasts know to hunt for, it came with a close-ratio 6-speed manual transmission and a limited-slip differential. That combo transformed it from a composed cruiser to a legitimate backroad brawler. 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds. But the real magic lived above 6,000 RPM, where VTEC kicked in and the car begged to rev. Inside, it was full Acura luxury. Bose audio, navigation, heated seats, and sculpted leather. But it wasn't a soft ride. The suspension was firm, the chassis tight, and the steering surprisingly communicative. This wasn't built to be a luxury knockoff. It was engineered for balance, a gentleman's sport sedan with a Street Fighter soul, and yet to this day, it flies under the radar. Most people wouldn't give it a second glance, but you will now. If you're loving this mix of silent killers and forgotten monsters, hit that subscribe button. We're not done yet, and the next one? It's a cop car in disguise that'll absolutely leave you in the dust. 2012 Ford Taurus SHO 3.5-liter EcoBoost, a highway patrol bruiser with twin turbos and zero patience for challengers. At first glance, it's a full-size sedan. Big, broad, understated. The kind of car your uncle might use to commute quietly, or worse, your local sheriff. But don't be fooled by the badge or the bulk. This one wears a uniform by day and sneaks off to the drag strip at night. This is the Taurus SHO, the reincarnation of Ford's classic sleeper formula. Beneath the hood sat a 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged EcoBoost V6, cranking out 365 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. That power hit all 4 wheels through a 6-speed automatic and an AWD system with torque vectoring. It launched like it had something to prove. 0 to 60 in about 5.2 seconds, with a deep growl and surprising urgency for a car that weighed over 4,300 pounds. Inside, it had all the bells, leather, tech, even paddle shifters. But what really made the SHO a sleeper icon was how invisible it was. Especially in silver or black, it blended perfectly into traffic, until it didn't. So here's the real question. If you were lined up at a light and this pulled up next to you, would you even flinch? Most wouldn't, and they'd be in for a surprise. Drop a comment and let me know. Would you take the SHO over a Charger RT? Or is this one still too dad for your taste? Next up, a twin-turbo V8 sedan from Germany, hiding devastating speed behind brushed aluminum and restraint. 2003 Audi RS6 C5, a boardroom executive's car with Autobahn attitude and a twin-turbo heart. It wore the uniform of subtlety, clean lines, muted colors, and just enough chrome to blend in with the German elite. It looked like something meant to escort executives to meetings or quietly wait in valet lines. But beneath the buttoned-up surface lurked one of Audi's most vicious powertrains of the era. Meet the C5 generation RS6. Beneath its conservative skin sat a 4.2-liter twin-turbocharged V8, producing a ferocious 450 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque. That grunt was sent to all four wheels via Audi's legendary Quattro AWD system, giving it relentless grip in any condition. 0 to 60 in just 4.6 seconds, and it kept pulling well past triple-digit speeds without breaking a sweat. What made it dangerous was how quietly it did all this. No big wings, no flashy vents, just subtle fender flares, larger wheels, and dual exhaust tips that whispered menace. Even the automatic transmission, a 5-speed Tiptronic, was tuned for smooth aggression, letting the torque flood in without drama. Inside, it was pure Audi luxury. Leather sport seats, carbon trim, and tech that was ahead of its time. But unlike its flashier rivals, the RS6 didn't scream for attention. It earned it on the highway. This was the kind of car you'd mistake for a regular A6 until it vanished in the fast lane like a disappearing act. And next, we head to Japan for our final sleeper. It's boxy, it's formal, and it's hiding one of the most iconic turbo engines ever made. 1995 Toyota Crown Athlete Phi 2.5-liter 1 JZGTE, a dignified cruiser for Japanese executives, powered by one of the most legendary engines Toyota ever built. At a glance, it looks like a chauffeur's dream. Big body, formal lines, lace seat covers, and enough chrome to suggest it spends more time parked in front of upscale hotels than carving corners. But this is no ordinary sedan. This is a Crown Athlete 5, and it's hiding a secret under the hood that makes gearheads lean in just a little closer. Tucked beneath that long, understated hood is the iconic 2.5-liter 1JZGTE, a twin-turbo inline-six, related by blood to the Supra's 2JZ. In this setup, it pushed out 280 horsepower and around 270 pound-feet of torque. Though those numbers were famously underrated in true 90s JDM fashion, matched with a 4-speed automatic or 5-speed manual, depending on spec, the Crown could sprint from 0 to 60 in around 6.0 seconds. Shockingly quick for a car that looks like it belongs in a government motor pool. But here's what really makes it special: the complete lack of drama. It's quiet, composed, effortless. The cabin is pure 90s Toyota luxury, velour, wood grain, digital climate controls. And yet when the turbos spool, it moves. The rear wheel drive layout gives it balance, while the weight gives it confidence. It's a true sleeper in every sense, unassuming, refined, and brutally capable when pushed. This is the kind of car that doesn't ask for attention, but takes respect the moment it surges past. Which one on this list fooled you the most? Looked like a slouch, turned out savage, or the other way around? Drop your pick in the comments. We read everyone. And if you're into cars that hide horsepower behind hubcaps, hit that like and subscribe, because this rabbit hole goes way deeper.